is Ransom Notes, so you're now watching my power composition. My musical influences and background are a lot of elements from getting inspired by dilla and Pete Rock. And then for when I sample, my inspiration is more jazz and soul influences, like percussive influences and like the expression of chord influences as well, like when I do my composition. But a musical background was more me listening to old like funk records when I was a kid that my mum used to play me, and then sort of developing more into listening to things like Wu-Tang, Pete Rock and Dilla that influenced me a lot, and like my varied like style of production as well. The first thing I used to actually produce on was this weird program in a primary school called Music XL 2000, and it was just a thing where people used to play with like loops, where it was just like sort of a tool where you'd like learn how to make music. But then I used to do more intricate shit with it and start chopping and things like that. And then one of my music teachers sort of told me about this course called DV8 where they sort of teach kids to make beats and things. And then I did that, and then sort of started using Logic and Cubase and then Abelton and things like that at college. And now I use Abelton and Logic like sort of together. I use Logic for the synths and then Abelton for like chopping samples and arranging drums and things like that. I was showing the ropes, and not much really. Like the teachers sort of showed me basics in college, but nothing really that develops your style, just the basic sequencing on how you put things into metronomes, things like that. But then I didn't really like that regimentedness, so I sort of did my own thing and started sort of listening to what other people do in their tracks, and I was wondering, why do their drums sort of swing this way, why does their kick sort of swing this way, and then sort of figured out about the MPC when I sort of started to look that up, and I looked up how people made beats when I was a little kid. So like didn't really know nothing, I just knew what I heard, so I sort of figured out what they were doing, and then eventually bought an MPC 500 as well, and then started using that in college with my music. And yeah, it just went from there. How did I acquire my first musical item? It was borrowed from a friend, Harry Austin from college. He made beats, so he lent me his old MPC 500 when he got the new 1000, and he sort of showed me the ropes slightly on how you like program drums and things. And then I started to do it myself as well, to develop like my own sort of style, if you get what I mean. The steepness of the learning curve. It was more steep at the beginning because I didn't know how to make drums swing and things like that. When I first started, I sort of, like my first ever beats I made on things like Cubase and that were sort of too regimented. Then I sort of figured out how to make swing patterns when I watch people on like MPC videos on YouTube and things like that, and then sort of figured out how to make the drums swing like that and actually sound like real hip hop instead of just some regimented type of movement in my drums. It took me about 5-6 months, I think, to sort of not master it, but get a grip to so that I could sort of go where I want to go with it. But then I started to use other things like keyboards and using the samplers in the program to sort of chop the sample across the keys like an MPC as well. So I sort of didn't see the need for it any longer, and then sort of got rid of my MPC when I could sort of do the same thing in programs with things like drum racks and like assigned to the keys and things. So it sort of works similar to a sampler. But do I still own the equipment? No, I sold it, I think, to pay rent like years ago, but it's one of my biggest regrets because I still miss using the MPC 500 because there's nothing like the sort of sound you get from an MPC. Like it can sort of be replicated, but not that well as I'd like it to be in my production. I sort of do miss it a lot. Do I think it was the right piece of gear to get me started? Yeah, I think it was the right piece of gear, but I reckon I wasn't ready at the time I was for it, but then I'm thankful because that sort of made me sound the way I sound now. Otherwise you'd sort of sound the same as someone else. Which equipment do I use nowadays? I use the Akai Synth Station 25 because it's quite a quick handy little trigger finger when you want to assign your chops through the program onto the keys to treat it like an old school sampler. And you don't have to run it through the in and output, you can just sort of use it with the MIDI wire, which is quick and easy to navigate in the sequencer. So I sort of prefer that for how easy it is to set up and use. I think mostly I find myself sampling old like Northern Soul type records, because when I first ever started making beats I was highly inspired by Max Wonder and J Dilla, and I like sort of didn't know where to get their sounds, and I walked in a record shop one day and just started conversating with people who were working there, saying what are the best things to sample, and then they said old like soul records like Aretha Franklin, James Brown, and like an old funk records and things. So I just started digging the crates and finding my own sort of style with that type of sound. Do I share my sample information? Not really. Sometimes I do if it's a well-known sample and I've flipped it in quite a creative, weird way. I might tell someone what the original sample is, but usually I wouldn't share that because I don't want someone sampling the same thing or making the same beat as I've made or try to replicate what I've made. How do I acquire my samples? Sometimes I do e-digging, but it's more when I can't afford vinyl or when I haven't got much money, I'll do some e-digging, but I mainly prefer to sample vinyl for the sound quality because it usually sounds a lot better than something you've just found on YouTube and ripped or something. Then because it's like a low bit rate, you have to spend a lot of time mixing it and things, so it's not really helpful for e-digging. But if you want a quick way to get samples, I recommend it, but I'd more recommend vinyl for the actual sound quality and makes it sound better in your actual beat when you flip it. My favourite sampling software is the MPC 500, that's what I started with and that's what I'm comfortable with. And my favourite software is Abelton for the weird little creative effects you can do and ways you can manipulate the sample. It's unique to Abelton, what some other programs haven't got. What do I think is more essential at sampling drums? I'd usually say drums, but then if I was making a more chilled out, quiet beat with more ambient effects and things like that, I'd say the sample for the like acoustic aspects, but I'd say more the drums as well. It depends on what type of beat you're making. As an MPC user, I'd say the best golden era current times are 1995 till 2001, because that's sort of my favourite style of sampling, or the way they flip the drums where they were sort of rugged but smooth and then had that nice type of contrast, or that sort of MPC swing that you don't really see nowadays in a lot of people's hip hop. Like most of it is sort of regimented or track based, and it's sort of, although in my opinion it's sort of lacking the fun of that sort of swing or creativity. So my two favourite musical instruments are the piano and the koto. Like the piano because it reminds me of jazz and funk records I grew up listening to, what my mum used to play me. And then I'd say the koto as well because it reminds me of old kung fu movies as a kid, like growing up, so it's sort of like nostalgic in a sense. Can I play any instruments? Yes, I can play the koto and the piano, but the koto I can't really play that well, but I've sort of started to learn it and fuck around with like the notes on it, so I'm sort of teaching myself that slowly. But the piano I'm more experienced with, and I'd like to sound good, but I'm probably average at composition, I'd say. But I sort of prefer mixing both, like with samples as well. If I wanted to play an average, I'd say definitely one I want to learn is guitar. So I'd love to sort of play sort of old early 70s sounding soul type of chords over my beats without having to use samples, so I'd have more creative control over my music. Like instead of picking a certain style of sample, I'd be able to just play it off the top of the head if I was more experienced as a guitar player or something like that. Top two producers I'd love to work with that are reliable would be J Dilla and Madlib, because they sort of highly inspired the way I sort of craft my drums or the rhythms around it, my music. But then another part of me sort of says RZA as well, because I grew up listening to Wu-Tang, so it's sort of a hard choice between two, but I'd have to say, if I already had to choose, then RZA and J Dilla. If I could pick two MCs dead or alive on a track, it would probably be Mortal Technique and Big L, like, but on the same track. Because I grew up listening to Big L and sort of was quite inspired by the beats on his album and also like his rhymes as well. So yeah, I'll definitely say Big L and Mortal Technique because of what he raps about, and I sort of grew up sort of listening to that as well when I was in secondary school and was like inspired on how he sort of exposed things like the government or corruption or injustice. So it was like my first time hearing rappers sort of rap about subject matter like that, so it sort of highly inspired me in a sense of my perspective as well. So out of those two, it will be the Mortal Technique and Big L. Top three producers would be J Dilla, DJ Premier and Madlib. Because my first would be Dilla, because there's no other producer like him, or no one that can get their beats to sound exactly like him. It's just a one and only, that you could never get that type of sound again, and it's more authentic, and that's like the reason why Dilla would be my top. And then second choice would be DJ Premier, because I grew up listening to Gangstar and then things like Tribe Called Quest and some of the tunes they used to do for like Talib Kweli and things like that. So that sort of inspired the way I make beats as well, because I wanted to work with people like Talib Kweli as well, like he did, and people like Guru. So that sort of inspired me to sort of start making beats as well. And then last of all would be Madlib, because of his weird, like quirky creativeness that you don't really see nowadays as much. So people I'm feeling right now, aside the people I've said, are more people like Iron Braids or Elzai out of Slum Village, because of their intricate wordplay and vocab that you sort of don't get anymore. So it's like reminiscent of golden era music that I grew up listening to, I'd say. And probably Lone Ninja as well, because he's got quite a original, complex like rhyme scheme, and I sort of like people to be more quirky and like intricate with their syllable wordplay. So sort of, I don't know, more definitely a lyricist head, so I just picked them out of all people I'm feeling at the minute. I'm gonna bring you to a tune I flipped now, which is Conan the Barbarian sample. It's somewhere his girl's getting burnt after she's like died, but they have the funeral and that. But I was sort of inspired by the strings in the background, so I just thought I had to sample that. And this is a joint I flipped out of it now. With the strings, I sort of pitched it down to give it a little bit more eeriness, but I need to minus like 2 semitones. But these are the strings as they are. And this is it with the drums as well. So then with the drums, I sort of chopped this little break here, which is this, and then layered it with another snare, like, or cymbal and snare at the same time, and then some hi-hats, and then the kick here. So it's still sort of has a swing similar to MPC, but not quite as good, because usually I use MPC to get like the swing I want to replicate or the sort of vibe I want. But recently, this Akai thing's broken. I was using it like an MPC, like a sampler, but now where the MIDI wire's broke, I can't really use that at the moment until I get a new MIDI wire. So the way I've been working now is just like dragging the sort of waveforms all over the grid, so it's like kind of quantized but unquantized, if you get what I mean, where I've sort of dragged some of them not out of time but like out of place or out of rhythm, but then back in rhythm, so sort of syncopating on the verge to get that wonkiness that an MPC has, or to the best I can replicate it to my abilities. So that's like the way I've had to make drums at the minute. But in the joint in its entirety, I'll just play it to you now. Strings up, so it will make some of the samples seem more like eerie but more in vocal motion, or like feel more deep, to sort of feel submersive when you listen to it. So I thought orchestrally the sort of higher strings on the sample that I've pitched up sort of make it sound more raw to sort of captivate you. So that was like my intention when I composed the beat. Another joint to flip, but with this one I'm not really gonna share the sample information because I don't want anyone sampling the same thing. Well, at least I think no one has sampled the same thing. I'll just play the joint in its entirety first. First step was the drums, but as I've previously told you, I can't sort of arrange drums the way I'd like to on an MPC anymore, so with this I've just sort of arranged the drum on the grid again, but still with a lot of swing. But I started with this kind of like heavy kick, and then like this snare from where it was sort of me clicking into the mic, and I just sort of put a lot of reverb on it. And then there's like just a clap from the drum pack, which I've compressed, like in parallel, compressed up a bit. And then there's just the hi-hats, and then some of the shakers. And then with some of the ambience over the sample, you're hearing like all these little background samples. I've just got like little vocal clips out of drum packs that are like split seconds, and put like this effect called ping pong, like delay, what you get in Abelton, where it just sort of delays something dramatically or like rhythmically to the timing like of your beat, and syncopates the rhythm of the type of delay. So I've done that with a lot of like quite little ambient samples to build up intricate layers, and that's what you'll sort of hear over the sample when I play it in its entirety. With this type of beat I was inspired like quite a lot by Flying Lotus and the way they use ambient samples in like the rhythmics and syncopation of their tune, like with the melody. So that sort of inspired me a lot to make this type of hip hop, because usually I make things like boom bap, but occasionally I will sort of try and make something more experimental or like weird sounding. So this is just an example of that. to play now is one I've did with Process and Planet Asia on Process's album World by City Phantom, which is dropping March 13th, I think. And it's featuring Planet Asia, one of my favourite rappers I grew up listening to, so this is like one of the joints I want to pick to showcase for this. So I'm about to play the joint now in its entirety.
Yeah. Some of y'all sounding more feminine than females. Yeah. Talking to you tick like that. Oh, you gossiping cats, be more feminine than females. Females are hesitant and better than their details. Sweet nails, soft hands with emotion to match. You ain't holding this stack, dude, you grow up in this snatch. I'm smoking this sack while I'm laughing, it's all. How some tight ass pants not smashing your balls. Back in the store, you be touching up your makeup. Wait, what the fuck you said? I'm smashing your face up. Player, or dude, you ain't meant to rap. No, don't make me start, dude, you ain't meant for that. No, bless the rap, be with me and PA, dude. Slaying the great dude, with the bass bone play goons. But then
this joint happened was I approached Process through like Facebook, and I was just talking to him when I heard a couple of his videos, and then I found out he was doing tunes with Planet Asia and things like that. But then I emailed him just asking if he wanted to collab, and it was his idea to get Planet Asia on the joint, so it just happened from there really, like through just communication over the internet. But now I just sort of play the rest of the joint.
Nike flight, school, flight academy scroll. I magically appear, still regulating mic duels. Poisonous ring, do-rag, regime your kids captive. Picking pockets and ripping watches, flick off a ratchet. Commando click, we rambo sick. Quick to fast forward, your sample flick. Wild cowboy, banjo hick. I plan those licks. Grams ran birds, got served like Nando's chick. Expanding my chips. Be cipher, self-savior, this is Planet Asia. Sole controller of my constellation. Conquer patience when I'm operating. You control hoes, I control the population. If you the king, then the crown is up for confiscation. No conversation, bombing on you, no relation. This is get money, good guzzling. Bottles of bubbly, Doc Yacht, Nautica rugby. You gotta love it.
We'll now bring you to a joint I produced for Denku, Sean Price and Maximus Dementis. It's called Venomous. And joint sort of happened by me talking to Denku like through SoundCloud, and I was just following him, like liking his tracks and things. And then the more like beats I started to send him, he started getting me in touch with people like Sean Price and Copyright, so there could be like features on the tune. So yeah, this is like how the tune happened basically. And then they all recorded their verses separately, and then sent it to me, and then I mixed and mastered it, and then I sort of did some cuts in the chorus as well. But this is a joint in its entirety. But I'll just play Sean Price's verse now, since I don't want anyone to hear the whole thing until it's released yet. So I'll just skip to Sean Price's verse now.
Thing in the trunk, fuck, bitch, go to children before I start showing prices. Go to children before I start to fuck you up. Microphone check, promethazine team, part of styrofoam set. I'm a known vet, Sean Price is the name, dude. The skinny chrome skit left flesh in pain. Vest and cane, sling a lot of thing in the truck, collecting my change, get a lot of bang for my buck. Fuck living off the grid, I'll bust your head just for living off the sled. Acrobatic rap shit, gold medal level, that's an automatic draft pick. Man, truly right with scoring. The first shot we last him, booby to a Jordan. Fuck a plan from your mans and them damn phonies. They get rolled on for ice like a Zamboni.
And this track will be released on my upcoming album, which is a compilation of every single track I've produced for anybody. It's called Hooked on Phonics Volume 1. So that will be dropping, I wouldn't like to say a set date, but within the next 4 months I'd say, until I've got a more moderate collection of tracks. I'm bringing to another joint which is off Mine and Braid's EP How to Ransom, which is like dropping fairly soon. And, with this track I sort of flipped like a Bruce Lee film example of the Big Boss movie. I don't know if you can hear it, like, but I recognise it. I was sort of inspired by the sort of kung fu instruments when I flipped the sample on this track, and I think Gray's complimented it quite well, because it's like, on this track it's sort of got a Wu-Tang-esque delivery, but still with that sort of grit and rawness, which I like about his style, which like is another reason I like working with him. You often say about that, it's just basically this track, like, I hope you enjoy it and you get to know everything after listening to it.
Palestinian infants defending themselves in solid rock, circling the block as satellites proceed to watch. You know the clock and pendulum will never stop. This is the modern griot. See what we got. Council and state ciphers and beatbox until we're greedy men walk with the heat cup. From the sword to the jugular, from the battlefield to coroner, from the alpha onto the omega, from the morse to the law, your honor, from living righteous to fornicating with horse, your honor, from the sword to the jugular, from the battlefield to coroner, from the alpha onto the omega, from the morse to the law, your honor, from living righteous to fornicating with horse, your honor.
Right, dang cool.
I'm about to bring you to this joint here, which is a Heart featuring copyright Denku, Chief Komachi and Alter. And how this track happened was basically I sent a beat to Denku saying, oh, would he be able to get like megahertz of copyright on it, because I noticed he did a lot of tracks of them. And at first he said no, like, and but I think he said it just to fuck with me, because when he actually did the track he sent me back the track with Chief Komachi, copyright Alter verse and his verse already on it, so he sort of didn't tell me copyright was even going to be on it. He sort of telling me not to like fuck with me, so I think it was a nice surprise anyway. And with the sample in this, I can't really reveal what sample I flipped, but I will tell you that Ninth Wonder and Pete Rock previously flipped it, but in slightly different ways. Yeah, with this track, sort of it's like two MCs I grew up listening to, so it sort of means more to me than most of my tracks do, or it's like the one I'm most proud of, I'd say. But I'll just let you hear the joint in its entirety now, sort of an entirety.
Time for me to focus while I write another scroll. I'm trying to grab control and not resort to past experience. Still breaking the mold, never holding back, no fear in this. It's wicked how I come out and kick it from the scrimmage. Efficient, I don't play the game because I live it. Explicit, no fairy tales or fables, just the hardest facts. When I start to rap, they don't really want a part of that. Cardiac arrest, catching heart attacks. Best protect your chest.
And this joint is also going to feature on my album, Hooked on Phonics. Yeah, that's all I have to say about this joint. And I hope you enjoyed listening to it and listening to the joints I produced. So I'll leave you with that. I'm about to bring you to this joint now, which I produced for Process and Ed OG. It's on our Process's album again, like White Boy City Phantom. So I'll just play this now, and hope you enjoy it. And how this joint happened was I sent Process a beat that I played like synths on, because I don't usually like make synth type beats, because I didn't like agree with it before, like, so I preferred just the aesthetics sampling. But then I just tried to just play like a synthy type bit here without using samples as well, just to see if I could. So this is like a beat in the background. How the track actually happened was me talking to Process, and then he asked Ed OG to put a verse in it, and Ed OG did it for free as well, which I respect, because most like people charge a ridiculous amount just because of their name and things like that. So I'm quite happy with the track in that sense. And on the track also I did cuts as well, which I sampled like one of MIP's acapellas. And on the beat I sampled the snare from the Funky Drummer track, and I laid it with another like just drum pack snare. It's not that detectable because I've just sort of changed it down like a semitone to change the timbre of the drums. So that's what you might notice with the drum pattern.
deal with it. I'm real with it.
Just play those
Snap,
verse and
I
then
snap back, I'm a real
hope you enjoy it as
Check
well.
how I spit it, you live it, admit it. You talk it, I live it. All things considered, you a gimmick or mimic. 100% is what I give it. While ballers never travel, don't move, they pivot. Invest more, floss less. We pay more, but it costs less. Heartless, make you nauseous. Eyes and ears open, so we cautious. Start the revolution, I'm the Marxist. Bring the light to the darkness. In a climate that's
I'm going to bring you to a joint now I've produced for my boy Prospect. He's from Brighton as well, like and he's like up and coming rhymer. And we both put the CP out on Mumbustrous Records. And it's called Invasion. If you want to cop that, it's free download. And Wordplay Magazine have written an article about it as well.
Facing the consequences.
Nah,
the sins I've committed in
I worked on this album because
it
was sort of, we have the same type of opinions about government and things like that, and we love to talk about spirituality, shit like this, so this tune sort of describes what we feel in that aspect. And I got the sample from, well, this one I will reveal, I got the sample from the Tomita track what J Dilla flipped, but then I flipped a different part of the sample and laid up different parts of it with it, and just played my own bass line under it, and just flipped a break and then played other drums over the top on the MPC live over it.
Documents were hidden from the population vision in fear that we would reprise and inoculate the system. Now we're in the middle of an alien collision. It looks like the end of Homo sapien existence. All I can see is shrapnel flying in the distance. Cries of help to God turning atheists to Christians. Armed soldiers trying to aim with precision.
Having and not having arise together. Difficult
This is one of the
complement each other.
beats I'm just going to play like what I've been making recently. And with this beats, it's like no samples. I just downloaded this like quite rare VST called Alchemy, which is like a beta version. So I just sort of really like this weird like eerie Chinese guitar in it. So I put some like delay and effects on that, and then flipped it over some like unquantized drums, and then used like a kung fu film movie for the intro, which I'll just play now for.
Having and not having arise together. Difficult and easy complement each other. High and low rest upon each other. Front and back follow one another.
And I thought the sample fit this because it was fitting the kung fu type mood of the sample. So I wanted to sort of bring that together so they like sort of coincide and resonate together to give that sort of Eastern feel with the production. But I'll just play the beat in its entirety right now. To another beat I flipped, and I can't really reveal the sample, and I'll just play the beat in its entirety first, and then I'll go through like what inspired me to flip it. What I did for this sample was when I had my keyboard thing, like the Akai station working, I chopped like different parts of the sample up across the keys. So like every little hit I was just sort of hammering them. So it was sort of like instead of just looping a sample like most people do if they're like lazy or something or don't really chop, I didn't really want to do that, so I wanted to like flip it more intricately. So I just sort of more loop the same bit over and then chop different parts around it, sort of thing. and then played the drums like, live on quantized as well, which you can sort of hear. Moving to another beat I flipped. With this one I sort of wanted to replicate that 90s New York type feel with Pete Rock and Premier, like the type of examples they flip, or that like type of swagger with sampling, if you want to call it that. And with this beat I just made it on the MPC 500 when I used to have that, which this is one of my favourite beats because of that, so it still replicates that old 90s feel with the unquantized drums played in live. And as I said, this one's very like East Coast like, inspired. And the drums are like more in it as well, because it just replicates like the type of hip hop I grew up listening to, so like hip hop I knew and loved since I was a kid. And also I did cuts in a sampling like an MIP track a cappella. I'm about to play one of the beats I made last night and show you my method of like organisation, how I work and how I mix my beats, etc. And usually I would use this, which is the Akai like synth station, and it's sort of used sort of like a trigger finger, like, but sort of to mimic like an MPC when you sample things. And this is currently like out of action, so I can't use it anymore, like until I get another MIDI wire. But my preferred method of working is just using this, like usually. But I've had to change my methods, and I'll show you how I've had to change them by showing you this beat, for example. I'll just play the beat now first in its entirety so you can listen. And I'll show you how I've made this, like the process of how I've arranged drums, etc. Like with the drums on this, I made a previous beat and I didn't like the sample or anything else in the beat, but I just preferred the drums, so I'll bounce down the drums out just in a solo channel to flip on another beat, because sometimes I do that if I'm not feeling like the sample. So I've just sort of arranged the kick and snare on the grid and then bounced it down into this loop, which is just, and then I've added an extra kick like in between, and on the drums it's just sort of like, and then with the sample I've sort of chopped it to try and make it sound as much like when I had an MPC as possible, sort of thing. And I'll show you this, like the example on its own. So I sort of preferred it to sound quite choppy, like how it would mimic the way I used to make beats when I had that equipment where I could play it in live. But the thing, it does annoy me a great deal that I can't, so I've had to just make beats this way from now on. But now I'll show you the way I've mixed it, which is on the master channel I've put like parallel compression on it, which is just 50%, which is going to lift and sort of glue some of the frequencies together. And then I've put like a saturator on it to make it sort of sound more like rough and distorted, but in a nice way. It's more like aesthetically pleasing. And put some reverb on the master channel too, to just sort of lift it, but not a great deal, just like a really tiny amount of reverb, just to give like a really tiny amount of ambience, like have more of a feel. Another thing with this beat I want to show is the way I did the bass, because it's quite different to what I usually do. But the thing is, what I don't like at the minute, because this is not working, is that I can't play like my bass line, so I have to, well at the minute, sort of filter out all the other frequencies, so it's got like the lowest frequency of the sample, and then chop the sample as a bass like it was my own instrument type of thing, and just select which notes I want, and then rearrange and chop the bass line to sort of compose it that way. I'll just play the bass on its own, which is like taking an example but chopped up the way I like sort of wanted it. And then this is the bass with the sample. And then the beat as you've previously heard before. And yeah, that's it basically. So I'll just play the beat now for you in this whole entirety, and I hope you enjoy it.